What's up, YouTube? So in this video, I'm going to be doing a tier list ranking of NFL teams going into the 2022 season. As you can see here, I have all the teams listed with their division. So we have the AFC North, the AFC East, the AFC West, AFC South, NFC North, NFC East, NFC West, NFC South. No particular order, like this isn't ranked like who I think is going to be the best. Obviously, Jacksonville would not be the first one in the AFC South. But yeah, so we have Super Bowl contender, serious playoff contender, a team that could make the playoffs, solid, middle of the pack, below average, bad, and whack. I think all those rankings make sense. I also am going to be taking a look at their rosters and schedules to kind of help with this, because I'm a Dolphins fan, but I'm gonna look at this as unbiasedly as I can. So yeah. So let's go ahead and start off with the Steelers. I'm fairly familiar with their roster. That's right, they did draft Chris, who's kind of a receiver, kind of a quarterback. I forgot about that. This is also kind of a good way of refreshing myself on some of their teams, what off-season moves they've made. Yeah, they got Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Kenny Pickett really as their quarterbacks. I imagine Mitch would be the starter day one. Najee Harris, obviously, at running back. They got receivers up the ass. Let's actually do depth chart. I think that might be actually easier. Yeah. Yeah, Najee. They could use a little bit better depth. Benny Snell's okay as a backup, but if something happens to Najee, that running back room's kind of light. But Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens, Miles Boykin. That's actually a pretty damn good receiving core. Pat Fryermuth's good. After that, their tight end room gets kind of weak. I think their O-line could definitely be better. James Daniels was a good signing at guard. Hopefully Dan Moore will improve for them. Larry Ogunjobi, I think actually is kind of an upgrade over Stephon Tuitt, only because Tuitt is rarely healthy. And I think he's a pretty damn good player. I think he actually just had his career high in sacks last year, which was 7, which isn't crazy, but still. TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward are obviously studs. Devin Bush and Miles Jack, that's a lot of speed at the linebacker position. Not a lot of depth. Alex Highsmith is an okay player, but they could really use some depth at edge, for sure. Their cornerback room's really whack. Holy hell. Minka's good. Terrell Edmonds is okay. So their front set, well, I won't even say their front seven, because Alex Highsmith as a starting edge rusher is a little weird, especially with no real depth behind him. But I like their D-line. I think Larry Ogunjobi, Tyson Alualu, Cameron Hayward, TJ, and then these two linebackers are good. Alex Highsmith is fine, but there's no depth. I think the cornerback room is pretty whack. I think their O-line's kind of whack. Let's take a look at their schedule. Obviously, they're going to have to play the Bengals and Ravens twice each this year, which is kind of tough. The AFC in general is a much tougher conference right now, so that is going to be a thing. The Bengals, they probably get smoked by. The Patriots, that's going to be a tough fight. The Browns most likely have Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, so I think they probably beat Cleveland. They'll beat the shit out the Jets, probably. Well, I don't know. Mitch, we got to see how Mitch is going to be. And like I said, their offensive line has a lot of questions for me. The Bills and Bucks will probably smoke them. Dolphins could be an interesting fight, because we both have big questions on our offensive lines. It could be a lot of pass rush on both sides. I think Miami has more tools, though. I think we take that. Philly probably beat them. Saints could go either way. They probably lose to the Colts. They probably beat the Falcons. Ravens is going to be really tough. Panthers, I think, could go either way. Raiders probably beat them. Yeah, this is it's kind of a tough schedule actually. But like I said, the AFC is pretty much going to be tough schedules throughout. It's kind of hard to avoid because let's see, like the Steelers have enough things on their team to make them a threat. Well, we'll get into it. I think, and I may move teams around as I go through this, but right now I'm going to put the Steelers at below average. I don't think they're going to be whack because I think they have enough pieces on their defense and they have a good receiving core, a good running back. So I don't think they're going to be bad. They could even be middle of the pack. I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to let them fall too much. And honestly, Mitch Trubisky is probably a upgrade over 2021 Ben Roethlisberger. That's probably a real thing. I just think that the AFC is just so much better right now that it's really going to be hard to compete. But I might move them around. But I think they're going to be anywhere from bad to middle of the pack. So, yeah. Let me pull up the Ravens. Okay. So, I just realized the Bengals are actually next. Well, whatever. We're doing the Ravens. We'll do the Bengals later because I already have the Ravens pulled up. My bad. I don't know why I was looking at it that way. Whatever. So yeah, I think the Ravens are probably going to be good. They're either going to be they're probably going to be a serious playoff contender. That's probably just maybe Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't know about that. So yeah, obviously Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley. He can come in for a couple games if he needs to. I wish I knew more about their running back's health. Will it tell me? He's been okay. They're both on the physically unable to perform list, but it's still really early. Assuming that their running backs are healthy, they will have Justice Hill and Mike Davis, who are pretty solid too. That's a little tough. Rashad Bateman, Duvernay, James Prochet, their receiving core is pretty lacking. Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle at tight end, and Charlie Collar and Isaiah Likely. That's some crazy tight ends. That's crazy to me. Offensive line looking pretty good. They did get Tyler Linderbaum. Yeah, their offensive line looks fine. D-line looks fine. Yeah, David Ojabo, questionable. Is David Ojabo possibly going to be able to play this year? If so, that's crazy. Owe should be fine. Justin Houston should be fine. I think their linebackers are okay. Yeah, their defense looks fine. It's nothing crazy elite, but I think it's fine. I see them as a serious playoff contender. Ever since Lamar Jackson's really gotten there, they've been a real threat. The big thing with Baltimore is whether or not they can stay healthy. But I do think that they do make the playoffs, and I think they have enough in them to be a real threat in the playoffs. But I think their receiving core is going to be kind of a weakness for them as far as them being a Super Bowl contender. So I think that's probably going to be it. We'll take a look at their schedule, though. Jets week 1, that should be a slaughter. Dolphins could be interesting. Patriots, I think the Ravens take that. Bills probably beat them. Bengals is going to be fun both times. They probably smoke the Giants. They probably beat the Browns, probably lose to the Bucks. They probably beat the Saints. They should beat the Panthers and Jaguars and Broncos. The Steelers and them will probably split. Because regardless of anything, the Steelers and Ravens are always going to play each other hard. They might sweep the Browns, especially if Deshaun Watson doesn't play. my opinions on the Browns really depend on whether Deshaun Watson plays or not. I'm going off the assumption that he will not, but if he does play, then that completely changes my opinion. They probably smoked the Falcons. Like I said, the Bengals could go either way. I think they're probably a serious playoff contender. All right, so we're looking at the Browns now. Like I said, if Deshaun Watson plays, this completely changes my opinion of them. But if Jacoby Brissett is their quarterback, the Browns are going to be an interesting one here. I almost want to. Can I, No, I can't copy it. I was almost going to give them two different rankings. That's kind of a cop-out anyway. But Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, even Dearness Johnson and Jerome Ford, that's a great running back room. Amari Cooper, obviously, is their number one receiver, is really solid. David Bell is okay. Donovan Peoples-Jones is okay. After that, their receiving core, it's kind of meh. I'm not really a big fan. They do have Mike Harley, who I like, but he's at the back of the depth chart, so... David Njoku and Harrison Bryant are fine. Jedrick Wills. Their O-line looks fine. Nothing crazy, but looks solid. Let's see, their D-line. Myles Garrett, obviously, is a great player. Taven Bryan, Jordan Elliott. Yeah, Winfrey's interesting. They have Jadeveon Clowney. Okay. JOK is a fantastic linebacker. Anthony Walker's okay. They could use some depth help, I think. Corner, strong safety, and... Yeah, they're good at corner and strong safety. John Johnson, they could probably upgrade. But I think their defense looks pretty good. So it really comes down to the quarterback because I think their receiving core is pretty mediocre. Amari Cooper is a great number one, but after that, it really falls off hard. Obviously, a really solid running back room, solid O-line, really good defense. So it really comes down. I think with Jacoby Brissett, they are a below-average team. With Deshaun Watson, I must say, could make the playoffs. And actually, this is pretty telling for the Browns because I think they could make the playoffs with Deshaun Watson. But I think without them, they are a below-average team. They have a good defense, and they could end up middle of the pack even with Brissett with the running game in that defense. But I think that they would be probably below average, probably around where the Steelers are. So... All right, so moving on to the Bengals, finally, even though I did start to mention them before. The Bengals, obviously, were just in the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is amazing. Joe Mixon is great. After that, the running back room kind of gets light. I think Travion Williams could actually be better if they gave him some playing time. Receiving core is still pretty similar to what they had. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Hayden Hurst is a great tight end. They did go and get La'el Collins, so that'll help at right tackle. But I still don't really like their interior O-line. I think Ted Karras is pretty mediocre. Jackson Carman, I think, is whack. Alex Kappa is right around there with Ted Karras. He's okay, but nothing crazy. I think they could have definitely used some help on the inside. So I think they still have some O-line questions, in my opinion. It's definitely better than last year by default by getting La'el Collins, but still. Sam Hubbard is fine. DJ Reader, BJ Hill. Trey Hendrickson is a fantastic player. Cam Sample could be interesting. I'd like to see Tyler Shelvin get some playtime. Logan Wilson. Their linebacker room is okay. Uzier's solid. Eli Apple is trash. Yeah. Their DBs are kind of mad at me. Trey Hendrickson, like I said, is a pretty good edge rusher. Their linebackers are fine. I mean, Joe Burrow and this receiving core make them a serious playoff contender just like last year because their main things are pretty much still in pace. They are missing a tight end, but Hayden Hurst, I think, is fine. But for the most part, it's still the same core players. So I think the Bengals should still have some success. And their O-line is better than last year by default. So we'll see. Now, if you notice, I'm not showing the schedule for every single team. And that's because, especially in the AFC is pretty loaded. Like, there really aren't that many bad teams in the AFC right now. There really aren't. So you're going to end up with a more difficult schedule. Now, you might end up with like a more like a worse NFC division that year. So you'll have some easier games that way, but really all the AFC is going to have some fairly difficult schedules. So anyway, so moving on to the Patriots, which is the first AFC East team. Obviously, Mac Jones was looking pretty good last year, looking like he was pretty solid. Damian Harris, Stevenson. They did get Pierre Strong, James White, of course. So a pretty good running back room. Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar could still be a good player. Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne. After that, it gets a little bit weird. Hunter Henry is fine. Jonnu Smith is fine. Isaiah Wynn. Cole Strange is a solid player. I just still don't like the value at where they drafted him. I think their O-line still has some question marks. Trent Brown was a pretty good signing, but I think they have a pretty big hole at right guard and center. Not that big on David Andrews. On their defense, Vaughn's good. Lawrence Guy, Patrick Wise. I think that's beatable. But the Patriots, even if the talent isn't really there, they always get the best out of their defensive players. So their defense is always going to be solid. Malcolm Butler. Yeah. They got Jabril Peppers. I didn't know that. See, this is also why it's good that I'm looking at these depth charts, too, because I forgot that they had Jabril Peppers. That's right, Jason McCourty retired, huh? All right, so Patriots, I think, are going to be a solid team. That's about where I have them. I think they still have a lot of holes. I think their receiving core is still pretty lacking. Their defense still has some holes to exploit, but Bill Belichick will get the most out of them. But that's about where they are. I think they could be here or here, but I think it's somewhere in this range. I'm going to put them at solid. I don't really need to look at the Dolphins depth chart, but I will anyway. Alright, so obviously I'm a Dolphins fan, so I know the Dolphins depth chart the best. Didn't really need to look at it, but I figured I would anyway. So yeah. Obviously Tua, to the national media, is our biggest question mark. He is not my biggest question mark about this team. I'll get into that. I think our running back room is pretty solid. Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin, much better than what we've had in the past. We also have Savon Ahmed. We got guys on running back. Receiving core is really solid. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson's great. Eric is a solid yak guy. Lynn Bowden, same thing. Trent Sherfield could be a good player. Preston Williams is a good big body catch guy. Tight end is solid. Mike Gesicki's really a solid receiving tight end. We're going to have to see how well he's going to block, especially in this scheme. Durham Smythe, Adam Shaheen have been here for a few years now. They're both pretty solid. Hunter Long, pretty solid player that we drafted last year. Hopefully he gets some more playing time. Alec Ingold, decent fullback we got from the Raiders, which fits our running scheme. I think John Levitt probably gets cut. The biggest question mark for me on the team is our offensive line and our head coach. Because so far I'm loving what Mike McDaniel's been doing. But he has never actually called plays before. He's never been a head coach before, so I want to see what happens with that. And this offensive line has a lot of question marks. The only player we know for sure where they're playing is Teron Armstead at left tackle. And right now, he's missing training camp. So there are definitely some questions there. But he's the only one we even know what position they're playing. It shows Connor Williams as a center, but he's never actually started at center before besides in preseason for Dallas. He's always been a left guard in the NFL, and he was a tackle in college. So we'll have to see if he can actually play center or not. Him and Michael Dieter are gonna fight for the center spot. If Michael Dieter wins, Connor Williams becomes the left guard. And Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson have been fighting for the right tackle and left guard position. So they've both been trying both. And Robert Hunt has also been playing right guard and right tackle. So it's a nightmare. We have no idea where any of these four are going to line up. Or actually these five if you want to count Dieter. So, our offensive line is a very big question mark. In either way, people like Liam and Austin Jackson, one of them at the very least is going to start, and Michael Dieter, and they've all had some really big question marks as far as their technique goes. I've been very critical of all three of them. But hopefully with our new coaching staff, they really help because they've been really focusing down technique, so hopefully they are a little bit better. Our defense is an interesting one too, because when our defense is playing at its best, it's one of the most threatening ones in the NFL. We're very aggressive. We get turnovers, we get sacks, we get pressures. But the problem is our defense has been slow to take off the last few seasons. It's taken a few games for us to get going. Now, I'm hoping that won't be the case, because I think that the reason why it really took off is because Javon Holland and Brandon Jones were the ones having to make the calls because we didn't have Bobby McCain back there anymore, and Eric Rowe wasn't playing as much. I think it just took longer for the younger players to adapt to that. So I'm hoping year two with these two together, we can get off to a faster start. But Zach Sealer's good, Adam Butler, Raekwon Davis, John Jenkins, Christian Wilkins is really solid. Andrew Van Ginkel and Melvin Ingram are fantastic players. Atlanta Roberts, Jerome Baker, and Channing Tindall, very, very, very good players. Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips, Cameron Good. I love our front seven. Our corners, Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, are great. I think Byron should be back by the regular season, so I'm not really worried about that. Nick Needham is a fantastic nickel corner. I think Noah Igbenogany is a decent backup, but nothing really beyond that. And I think our safeties are good. I like Brandon Jones and Javon Holland. Eric Rowe is someone you can definitely count on to play either position if he needs to. Special teams really took a hit last year for the Dolphins. Jason Sanders was a very consistent kicker, but he kind of fell off last year a little bit. And our punting situation was really, really bad because we had a different punter last year. I'm hoping that the reason for that was because our punter was a bad holder. But right now we have Thomas Morstead and Tommy Heatherly battling it out for the punter spot. I'm hoping that Tommy ends up being as good as I think he can be, and I hope he beats out Thomas Morstead so we can have a young, cheap punter for a few years. That'd be nice. And hopefully with better holding, that'll help Jason Sanders out. Because I know that Jason Sanders and Blake Ferguson were both good in previous years together. The only thing that really changed was the holder. So, all that being said, I think the Dolphins are kind of where New England is. We have a lot of question marks. I think we could be anywhere from middle of the pack to could make the playoffs to a serious playoff contender. I'm going to go one over the Patriots. Just because I think with these weapons, I think we're a much bigger threat. The big question mark is our offensive line. And I hope our defense can, get off to a faster start. And without Brian Flores, who is a defensive-minded head coach, I'm hoping that our defense is still just as good as it has been. Now, that being said, we did retain every single starter we had. So, that does help. let's take a look at the Jets. Zach Wilson, who I think will have a much better year too. He was actually my number 1 quarterback in last year's draft. I think he's a very talented player. I just think he was in a bad situation. Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Tevin Coleman, that's a fantastic running back room. Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and Garrett Wilson is solid. Denzel Mims. Yeah, it's a decent little receiving core. CJ Uzama is a good tight end. Jeremy Ruckert, Tyler Conklin. That's actually some pretty good weapons for him. Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker. Those are solid. Could have some upgrades for sure from left tackle to center. But I think the right side is pretty solid. Assuming I don't know what's wrong with Mekhi Becton, but hopefully he'll be back. At least for the Jets. I don't really care. Not a Jets fan. But Carl Lawson's decent. Sheldon Rankins. I love Quentin Williams. John Franklin Myers. They did draft Jermaine Johnson. I think at some point he's probably going to end up being a starter. They might as well start him now. Let him use that athleticism. At least rotate him in. Hudson Nazariladeen's good. C.J. Mosley's still a solid player, but not what he was. Quincy Williams is okay. Sauce Gardner, I think, is going to be a really good player. DJ Reed is meh. Their safeties could use some help. I think the Jets will probably be like middle of the pack this year. They could be. It really comes down to Zach Wilson. Because if he ends up being who I think he is, I think they can be solid. But I think I'm going to go middle of the pack. I think they can be anywhere from this range to bad to solid. I don't think they're going to be whack. I do not. So I'm going to put them middle of the pack, just over the Steelers. Because I think that they have more to work with. Especially on offense. And I think Zach Wilson is much more talented than Mitch. So, anyway. All right, moving on to the Bills. Obviously, Josh Allen at quarterback makes them at least one of these two. They can't be any lower than that. Devin Singletary, James Cook, Zach Moss, Duke Johnson. That's a crazy-ass running back room. Stephon Diggs, obviously really good. Gabriel Davis has been solid for him. Jamison Crowder can be a good player. Khalil Shakir. Dawson Knox has been fine. They have O.J. Howard. I thought he was still in Tampa. Dalen Wettermeyer, who I'm not really that big a fan of. Their O-line seems okay, but nothing crazy. D-line, Greg Russo, Ed Oliver, Shaq Lawson. Quan Jones, that's fine. Yeah, they did get Von Miller. That definitely poses a real threat. Jadavis White, yeah. They have a lot. They have most of their major pieces still here. Yeah, AJ Epinesa too. Yeah, they're still a Super Bowl contender to me. I think they definitely are. And honestly, I got to put the Bengals there too. Because, I mean, they were just in the Super Bowl last year, and they've kept a lot of their pieces. So, yeah, I'll put them in the Super Bowl contender. Like I said, I probably will be moving teams along as I see them in regards to other teams. So, and me putting the Bengals over the Bills isn't me saying I think they have a better shot than the Bills. I think the Bills actually have a better roster. But it's just that I was doing the AFC North first, so, yeah. Anyway. All right. Moving on to the Chargers. Yeah, so we have Justin Herbert, obviously, who's a really, really, really good player. Austin Eckler, Isaiah Spiller is a great 1-2 punch at running back. Keenan Allen's solid. Mike Williams is a good player. Joshua Palmer can be decent. Gerald Everett is okay. Sean Slater's amazing. They got Zion Johnson, damn. Corey Lindsey. Yeah, they got they got Jamari Sawyer. Damn. Again, this is gonna be great. I can't wait to get to Tampa because I want to look at their tight end room. Like this is really reminding me of all the different offseason moves. It's tough to remember. Like I remember the Dolphins moves because I'm a Dolphins fan, but getting to take a look at all the other teams too before the season starts has been nice. So yeah. Jerry Tillery. So it looks like they're running it through. What the fuck? I hope they're not gonna make Joey Bosa stand up. Like even if you're running a 3-4, you can still put his hand in the dirt and just have him be a 3-4 defensive end. I wouldn't stand him up. Khalil Mack can do either one. They have Kyle Van Noy. Damn. This is a pretty nasty D-line. Linebacker room's solid. Asante Samuel Jr., yeah. German. Jesus. J.C. Jackson. I have to see a little bit more from Justin Herbert to put them as a Super Bowl contender because he is prone to making some bad decisions at times. So I'm gonna have to see him really push far into the playoffs before I can put him any further than this. But he's definitely a serious playoff contender. I think putting them next to the Ravens makes some sense. So, yeah. All right, moving on to the Broncos. Obviously, they got Russell Wilson, which is an upgrade over what they've had in previous years. But we do have to see if Russell Wilson is still the same guy he has been. Last couple years, he hasn't been as good as he once was, so we'll have to see with that. And I think his receiving core is considerably worse than it was in Seattle. I think that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are way better than Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. That's just my opinion, but it is what it is. Running back room's pretty good. Javonte Williams, I think, could be one of the best running backs in the game. Loved him in the draft last year. I wanted the Dolphins to take him. Melvin Gordon is a solid number 2. Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are both very good players. Courtland Sutton, a more physical guy. Jerry Jeudy, a really good, nuanced route runner. Tim Patrick is fine. After that, the receiving core kind of falls off a little bit. Albert O is an okay player. Greg Dulcich. Is it Dulcich? I think that's how you pronounce it. I knew how to say it during the draft, but I've forgotten by now. Their offensive line is pretty question mark too. But Russell Wilson's used to that, so it's fine. Defense. Yeah. They got DJ Jones, Mike Purcell, Draymond Jones, Marcus Spencer, Bradley Chubb, and they got Randy Gregory on the other side. That's a pretty solid, actually kind of scary 1-2 punch for edge rushers. Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton is okay at linebacker. Ronald Derby and Pat Surtain is solid. Their safeties are fine. Brandon McManus is a good kicker. I think the Broncos could make the playoffs. I'm just kind of concerned with their weapons and O-line. I'm going to call an audible real quick. Hang on. Alright, so as you can see, I actually added another tier, which is playoff team. So this is a team I'm pretty sure will make the playoffs, but I don't know how far they're going to get. Where like the Dolphins and Browns, I have too many questions to know if they are going to make the playoffs, but I could definitely see it. So I think the Broncos fit there. Because I think their roster looks a little bit more... I think their roster is just better than the Browns, and I think there's less questions about them than the Dolphins. But I don't think they're as good as the Ravens or Chargers. So I think adding this tier makes sense. All right, putting up the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, obviously great. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They got Ronald Jones? Huh. Jarrett McKinnon, that's a solid receiving core. Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Josh Gordon. It's a pretty decent receiving core. Obviously, Travis Kelce's great. But not having Tyreek Hill be that real good deep threat. Like Mecole Hardman and Sky Moore can both definitely be deep threats, but it's nowhere near like Tyreek Hill was. I think that does really hurt them. Offensive line actually improves going to Creed Humphrey. Well, no, actually no, they had him last year. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm mixing in the drafts in my head. They did get George Karlaftis, though, who I think is going to be a really good player. Frank Clark. Nick Bolton's a fantastic player. Jermaine Carter, Willie Gay. Trent McDuffie, they got better at corner. Huh. But see, the Chiefs, I'm going to actually put them as a serious playoff contender. Because the Bengals and Bills didn't lose any of their really big pieces. Like, not to the level of, like, a Tyreek Hill. Like, Tyreek Hill, like, if you go and watch my videos, because every season I make videos covering the Dolphins games and our upcoming opponents. And when I was having to scout the Chiefs over the years, I had no idea what to do with Tyreek Hill. Like, Travis Kelce is enough of a problem on his own, but having both of them really made their offense much more scary than it is now. So I have a little bit more questions about the Chiefs than I do the Bills or Bengals. But I could see them. But are they still a contender? I think they're better than the Chargers and Ravens, I think. Because I think their defense has improved a lot. But that receiving core really is pretty mediocre. Yeah, I gotta go here. I'm not a big fan of that receiving core right now. I think they're still solid, but without Tyreek Hill to really be that number one, I think Kelce can be a number one receiver in a sense. But I have to see a little bit more from the Chiefs first. Okay. Moving on to the Raiders. We've got Derek Carr, obviously. Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Green. Zamir White, pretty good running back group. Very power heavy for sure, which fits for what they do. Devontae Adams is as a number one receiver, is really solid. Hunter Renfrow is a good slot receiver. Demarcus Robinson is okay. Matt Collins, Keelan Cole, the receiving core is solid. Darren Waller is obviously a really good player. Colton Miller has improved a lot and is a decent player now. Their O-line's solid enough. Max Crosby is still a really good player. Cleveland Farrell's okay. Chandler Jones, that's a big pickup for them. Denzel Perryman. Jalen Brown. They have Divine Diablo as a Sam linebacker? That's strange to me. I'd see him more as a Will. Rocky Sin's a pretty good signing. Jonathan Abram and Trevon Morig. Oh, man. Trevor Mullen. It's a pretty damn good defense. I think the Raiders were already... I think they're probably a playoff... Oof. Yeah, I could see all... I think there's a serious possibility that the entire AFC West makes the playoffs this year. I think that's a real thing. Man. But this... This roster is kind of better than the Broncos. Yeah, I'm gonna bump the Broncos down one. That doesn't look right to me. Okay, yeah. I think that's a little better. Like I said, I wanted to keep the freedom to move teams up and down if needed. So. All right. Jacksonville Jaguars, first of the AFC South that we're going to be ranking here. Trevor Lawrence, obviously. I think he will have a much better year two. Travis Etienne, James Robinson. I still think Raquel Armstead is a better player than he's been able to show. Christian Kirk, Visca Chenault, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones. Their receiving core is okay. Evan Ingram at tight end. They don't really have like a clear number one though. They have two solid number twos and like a number three. So their receiving core is okay. Cam Robinson's a little weak. I'm not a big fan of Ben Barch. Jawan Taylor's solid. Luke Fortin. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of their O-line. D-line is okay. I'm not really that big on it, actually. I think J2 File should probably get an opportunity. Josh Allen's great. Devin Lloyd is fantastic. Travon Walker, I think, is really going to help, especially being across from Josh Allen. Shaquille Griffin. I think they are going to be better than last year. I don't think they're going to be whack. I think I'll put them below average, kind of where the Steelers are. Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that. All right, moving on to the Texans. Davis Mills actually started to show that he might actually be a decent quarterback for the Texans, but he's really lacking weapons. Marlon Mack is an okay running back. Rex Burkhead is old. I think Dameon Pierce, hopefully for them, Dameon Pierce takes Rex Burkhead's spot because they are both receiving backs. But, Dameon Pierce isn't a dinosaur. Brandon Cooks is okay receiving deep threat. Nico Collins is okay. Chris Conley. This receiving core sucks. This receiving core is awful. Brevin Jordan's an okay tight end. It gets pretty weird after that. O-line, Laramie Tunzel and Kenyon Green are both great. Justin Britt, AJ Kane, and Titus Howard are all pretty lacking. Jonathan Greenard, Malik Collins, oof. That defense is kind of gross too. Derek Stingley's great. Christian Kirksey's okay. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this defense at all. Whoops. Whack should be below bad. Yeah, the Texans are whack. Yeah, this is whack. That's awful. So. All right, moving on to the Colts. They obviously got Matt Ryan as their quarterback now, which helps. I think he'll be much better for them than Carson Wentz. I blanked on his name there for a second. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is at least a top 3 running back in the game. Phillip Lindsay and Hines, I think, are solid backups for them. Michael Pittman's okay. Alec Pierce, their receiving core is still really lacking, though. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of this receiving core at all. They have a big body. Alec Pierce can be kind of a deep threat. He's got some speed to him. Paris Campbell's kind of your gadget guy. The tight end room's pretty lacking, too. Molly Cox is okay. Kalen Granson's okay. Jelani Woods, I do like. Matt Pryor is not great. Quentin Nelson, obviously amazing. Ryan Kelly, good. Braden Smith, good. Danny Pinto. Left tackle is still a pretty big question mark for me. Kwity Paye, solid. Forrest Buckner. I think Ngakwe. Deo Odeyingbo. Yeah, I think their D-line's really good. Darius Leonard, obviously great. Bobby Okereke, Zaire Franklin, they're fine. Nick Cross is okay. Stephon Gilmore's solid. Getting more. I do like their corners. Safeties could be better. But their receiving core, and I'm going to put the Colts. They barely missed the playoffs with Carson Wentz. I'm going to go playoff team. With Jonathan Taylor as the main focus, I think Matt Ryan puts them over the edge. Especially with this defense. But I don't think that they're going to make a serious push. I don't think they're as good as these three, and definitely not these two. And I do think the Raiders are better than them, too. Moving on to the Titans. We've still got Tannehill. They drafted Malik Willis. Derrick Henry is solid, and hopefully he'll be healthy this year. Hassan Haskins is interesting backup. Robert Woods, Treylon Burks. They do not have A.J. Brown anymore, which I think will hurt them. Treylon Burks is kind of a different style player. They are both big bodies, but I think Treylon Burks, he does give you a little bit more in the yak game. I think Dez Fitzpatrick can be actually a good nickel for you, or slot receiver. Knicks, Austin Hooper is a solid tight end. Taylor Lewan still solid. Dylan Radunes is a good player. Yeah, their O-line seems fine to me. Nothing insane, but solid. Jeffrey Simmons is really good. Autry's really good. Harold Landry's amazing. Bud Dupree's fine. David Long, Zach Cunningham are solid. Caleb Farley's solid. Same with Christian Fulton. Their defense is pretty solid. I think with a healthy Derrick Henry, I think they're a playoff team, but no more than that. Well, this doesn't really add up, does it? How many? You got the 4 division winners, and then what, 3? So this doesn't work. I've got 8 AFC teams in the playoffs. It's got to be either the Colts or Titans that falls. I'm going to put them both there because I can't put one over the other. Yeah, I'm going to have to. Yeah, I think these 6 make the playoffs, and then I think it's 7 playoff teams per conference now, I think, right? I think so. Let's see. Only one team gets the first round bye. So, yeah. Yeah, 7. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Packers. Sorry if there's any background noise, by the way. We've got Aaron Rodgers, obviously, at quarterback is going to make them a contender. And honestly, the NFC schedule is going to be a little bit lighter. We've got Aaron Jones, obviously a solid running back. A.J. Dillon, who's a good player. I think Kylan Hill can be a good player for you. Their receiving core is definitely much worse. So Alan Lazard, Christian Watson, Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers. Like, these are all okay players, but they're all like number 3s. They're not even 2s to me. So this is definitely wide receiver by committee. Robert Tonyan is okay because of Aaron Rodgers. Elton Jenkins is a right tackle? How did that happen? All right. Dean Lowry, Nick Clark, Preston Smith, Sean Garrett. Quay Walker, that's a good one there. I have a lot of questions. They're definitely at least a playoff team. But I think that's about it. I have a lot of questions about their receiving talent. Aaron Rodgers alone, with Aaron Jones especially, makes them a playoff team. But I don't know how much further they can go than that. But the NFC's weak, so I think they are a serious playoff contender. Like, looking at the rest of the NFC. Yeah. Wow, okay. All right. Moving on to the Bears, we got Justin Fields, who I think will probably have a better year this year. David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery, I think, is a really underrated running back. Darnell Mooney, Byron. Oh, this receiving core is bad. Cole Kmet, who's okay. This receiving core is terrible. How are you not going to support Justin Fields? Tevin Jenkins, solid left tackle. After that, the O-line's pretty question mark. Tevin Jenkins, I think, should probably move in. Oh, no. He's their left. What the fuck is going on? Their offense is terrible. Holy hell. Tonga, Justin Jones, Robert Quinn, who I don't think is going to have as many sacks this year. He had actually quite a few last year, but I think having Khalil Mack helped him with that. This team is bad. This team is whack as fuck. Never mind. Justin Fields, I don't think he can save this team. That's awful. It's like they want Justin Fields to... You know what? We've all heard rumors about the Bears owners being racist. Maybe they want to force him to fail. Like, you know what? See what happens when we draft a black quarterback. Like, the only thing I could think of. Like, it's like someone sabotaged this team. This is bad. All right, moving on to the Vikings. We've got Kirk Cousins, obviously, who I think is an okay quarterback. Dalvin Cook is a solid running back. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, obviously really solid. Really, really good receivers. KJ Osborne. They got Albert Wilson. So after Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, you've got a kind of a bunch of meh. Okay. Irv Smith's a solid tight end. Darisaw, sure. Garrett Bradbury, who I like. Ezra Cleveland, I'm not big on. That's right, they did get Ed Ingram. You might just want to start him over Jesse Davis or Ezra Cleveland. I think he's better than both of them. But I get it. He's a rookie. Some teams are going to do... just because they've been in the league longer, they're automatically not going to start the rookie. I'm not a big fan of that mentality. But anyway, it looks like they're running a 3-4 now. Harrison Phillips, Dalvin Tomlinson's a solid nose. Jalen Twyman, not massive on. Darnell Hunter. Darius Smith is good. Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, it's fine. Patrick Peterson definitely isn't what he once was, but is still an okay player. Cameron Dantzler, Andrew Booth Jr. is solid. Lewis Seen, not a big fan of. Harrison Smith is still really good. Yeah, they still got enough weapons on offense and an okay enough defense, especially in the NFC. I definitely think they're a playoff team. For sure. All right. Lions, Jared Goff, who's pretty average to me. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams. Yeah, their running backs are fine. Amon-Ra St. Brown was pretty good last year. DJ Shark, solid. Jameson Williams, I think, is going to be really good for them. TJ Hawkinson is one of the better tight ends in the league. Penei Sewell's really good. Taylor Decker's okay. Now is okay. I think their guards could use a little bit of help. But it's an okay offensive line overall. Lane McNeil. I think Levi should probably be like a 3-4 defensive end in this game. Aiden Hutchinson. Obviously a good edge rusher for them. Aquara. Warrior is looking okay. Jeff Okuda. Yeah, their defense is looking kind of suspect still. They got some players to be interesting, but I think they have enough on offense to... I think they're definitely better than on paper than the Bears and the Texans. I don't think they're better than the Steelers or Jaguars, though, so I'll put them at bad. All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. We've got Dak Prescott, top 10 at least quarterback in the league, despite what Colin Cowherd had to say. Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott's not what he once was, but he's still a solid player. Still had 1,000 yards last year. Tony Pollard, I think, is probably actually better than him at this point. CeeDee Lamb, solid receiver. Got to have to see how he's going to be as a number one. Jalen Tolbert, I think, can be a solid number two, and I hear Dak likes him, so that helps. I know Michael Gallup is suspended for some amount of weeks. I'm not sure how long. I think it's either 6 or 10, something like that. James Washington is a pretty solid player, pretty good yak guy, pretty good deep threat. Noah Brown's a big body. Their receiving core is fine. It definitely takes a hit without Amari. Dalton Schultz, Jake Ferguson, Sean McKeon's fine. Tyler Smith, I think, with what they want to do, is fine at left guard. Tyron Smith's probably going to go down at some point, but he's still an elite left tackle when he's healthy. Tyler Biotish has some real question marks. Zach Martin, still, all-pro guard. Terrence Steele, he had a pretty good year last year, but we'll have to see if he can repeat that. DeMarcus Lawrence is more of a run stopper, but he's still a really good player. Dante Fowler is still okay, but nothing crazy. I'm not a big fan of Sam Williams, I'm going to be honest. Carlos Watkins, I think Osa is better than him. They do have Gwen Bahana and John Ridgway, huh? That's interesting. As far as the linebackers go, I mean, obviously Micah is an elite player. Leighton Vander Esch, not really a big fan of. Luke Gifford's trash. Boy. Javon Curse was pretty good last year. Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson are both decent. Trayvon Diggs, Anthony Brown are a solid number 1 and 2. Jordan Lewis is a nickel's fine. Hopefully they're doing a lot of nickel. I hope that's what they're doing, because this is Luke Gifford's bad. Bro Cox is a good coverage tight end. They're definitely a playoff team. I'll say a serious playoff contender. Yeah. All right, moving on to the Giants. We've got Daniel Jones, obviously, at quarterback. They have Tyrod Taylor. Did not realize that. Tyrod Taylor is on a different team every year, it feels like. Saquon Barkley, who can't seem to stay healthy. Hopefully that changes for him. Matt Breida. I wasn't a big fan of him in Miami last year. Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney. I think this receiving core is fine. Wan'Dale Robinson is a good player. Tight end's pretty whack without God, what's his name? He just went to the Jaguars. I just got done talking about him. Evan Ingram. There we go. O-line, Andrew Thomas, solid player. Evan Neal's definitely going to help them, but I think their interior could still use some work. Chad Ward. Dexter Lawrence. Leonard Williams. That's solid right there. Kayvon Thibodeau. I'm not sure how good he's going to be this year. I think he'll be solid. Tay Crowder, Blake Martinez is easy to learn. I like their linebacker room a little bit. I don't like O'Shane Zimenez or Quincy Roche. I actually liked Ellerson Smith over O'Shane Zimenez. I'm not going to lie to you, like when they were coming out. Xavier McKinney, that's the guy from Alabama, right? A few years back. I think their safety room's okay. I'm not a big fan of their corners at all, though. I think they're definitely better than the Texans and Bears. I think the Giants are just regular bad. I think they belong with the Lions. But I think the Lions are a little better than the Giants. that kind of pushes me to want to do this. Because I think the Lions are definitely better than the Giants, but I think the Giants are better than the Texans and Bears. So. Got the good old Washington Commies. Carson Wentz is interesting. He can definitely win or lose you games. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get to Jameis Winston, too. Taylor Heineke is a solid backup. I think he should have a career in the NFL. I think he's a very solid backup or low-level starter, like a bridge quarterback. I think he can do both of those things well. Antonio Gibson's solid enough. J.D. McKissick's okay. Brian Robinson, Jarrett Patterson's okay running back room. Terry McLaurin, pretty good deep threat. Curtis Samuel's a solid number 2. Jahan Dotson I like. So decent little receiving core. Logan Thomas is a decent player. Tammy Brown can play. I don't like their O-line, like, at all. Yeah, no. Moving on to their defense. Their D-line's obviously crazy. Chase Young, who got hurt last year. Hopefully he'll be better off this year. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. That's a really good D-line. That's insane. Fedarian Mathis, who gives you the ability to move him to either defensive tackle spot as a backup, which is helpful. Linebacker room's pretty whack. Jamin Davis is okay. David Mayo, Bobby McCain is a decent free safety, but nothing crazy. Their D-backs are pretty mediocre to bad. Not a big fan of their linebackers either. It's really just their D-line that's a threat on their defense. And Jamin Davis is fine, especially if he can run free because of this D-line. I think with Terry McLaurin, Carson Wentz can definitely win you some random games. I think they're better than the Giants. I think they're about where the Lions are. I think they're just below average. Moving on to the Eagles, who just had a pretty good offseason, draft and free agency, and trades. So we got Jalen Hurts, who I have a lot of question marks about. Not really a big fan of him. Haven't ever been, really, even when he was in college, if you go back to watch my film sessions on him and stuff. It just kind of is what it is. Miles Sanders, really solid running back. Kenneth Gainwell, I like. A.J. Brown, fantastic trade. Devontae Smith, great route runner. Quez Watkins, not going to lie, after A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, their receiving core kind of falls off. Dallas Goedert is fine. They have Tyree Jackson. Is that the Buffalo quarterback? Yeah. Huh, that's interesting. Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson. Their O-line seems fine. Brandon Graham, who I don't think is what he once was, but he's still a good player. Same thing with Fletcher Cox. But Jordan Davis is amazing. Derek Barnett is a fine player. Hassan Reddick, DJ Edwards, Darius Slay, that's a pretty good one. James Bradbury, pretty decent little 1-2 punch at corner. Safeties could use some help. Yeah, it's a pretty good team. I just have a lot of questions about Jalen Hurts, but they have a pretty solid roster. The receiving core, if there's any injuries, there's definitely some problems. Because like I said, after A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, it's pretty spooky. Sorry. So, yeah, the Eagles, definitely a playoff team for sure. I'll put them there for now, and once we're done with the NFC, I might move them. Because right now we've got 4 NFC teams in the playoffs, and we need at least 3 more. So I might move some people up or down. So hang on. All right, moving on to the Cardinals. Obviously, we got Kyler Murray, who just got paid. I still can't believe Colt McCoy is still in the league. That's insane to me. James Conner, who's an okay running back. Darrell Williams, who's a solid backup. DeAndre Hopkins suspended for 6 games. I wonder why it didn't say that for Michael Gallup. I know Hopkins is trying to fight to get that reduced. Marquise Brown is a solid deep threat. AJ Green, still a good player. Rondale Moore. Andy Isabella, they can play. Zach Ertz, Trey McBride. Okay, they got some weapons, man. They got some pretty good tight ends. O-line still kind of suspect. Defense, they got J.J. Watt, who can hopefully stay healthy. Rashad Lawrence, Zach Allen. Dennis Cardig, Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons. That's crazy, putting them together. I always forget about that. Marcus Golden. Byron Murphy, Jalen Thompson, Buda Baker, Marco. They have Matt Prater, kicker. Okay. They're definitely a playoff team. For sure. The only thing is Kyler Murray kind of fell apart after D-Hop went down last year. And with him being suspended for 6 weeks, I am kind of concerned about that. So for now, I'm going to put them on playoff team, but I might bump them down. But they have a pretty crazy roster. But they have a lot of guys who are prone to injury, like A.J. Green, Zach Ertz, J.J. Watt. Marcus Golden gets hurt decent little bit. They got some... James Conner is kind of injury prone. So... And keep in mind, too, like... Injuries can derail all of this. Like, if Joe Burrow goes down week 1, the Bengals are fucking done. So, just keep that in mind. All right, moving on to the 49ers. 49ers are interesting because they're moving on to Trey Lance, who's unproven. He's a guy who has a lot of physical gifts, but his mental processing and all that side of the game has been really big question marks for him, even in college. Jimmy G has had success with them, but has never been able to take him over the edge. I think Jimmy G will probably be off this team before the regular season. I think they're either going to have to find a way to trade him, or if that can't happen, they might just have to cut him, just because of how teams are built. Because your roster needs to know that Trey Lance is your quarterback. Because if Trey Lance starts to have a couple bad practices or a couple bad games, you can't have them looking at Jimmy G. You need to make a move there. But anyway, Elijah Mitchell is solid. But the 49ers are going to find a way to run the ball regardless. Who their running back is does not matter. Deebo Samuel's really good. Brandon Ayuk is fine. Juwan Jennings. Their receiving core is pretty okay, but they're more of a running team anyway. George Kittle and Tyler Kroft is really solid. Number 1 and 2 tight end. Obviously, George Kittle is elite. Him and Kelsey fight for the best tight end in the game. Trent Williams, who's still is still a pretty solid player. O-line's still fine, nothing crazy. Defense, D Ford is an okay player. Javon Kinlaw, sure. Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, obviously pretty good D-line. Dre Greenlaw. I think their linebacking core could be a little better. Fred Warner's good. Okay, I think their defensive backs could be a little better too. I'm going to put the Niners as a could make the playoffs team because Trey Lance gives me a lot of question marks. I think they could be because they got a good roster and they've been a contender for a while. But Trey Lance is a big question mark for me. And so are their defensive backs. So I'm going to do that. Okay. The Rams, obviously, we have Matt Stafford. Pretty good quarterback there. Top 10 for sure. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Kyron Williams, pretty good running backs here. Cooper Kupp, obviously a really good receiver. Allen Robinson, a solid number 2. Van Jefferson's a good player. Tutu Atwell can be used for like gadgety stuff. Ben is a decent slot receiver. Tyler Higbee is a solid tight end. I think they could use some help past that. Left tackle is definitely weaker now. The offensive line as a whole is actually looking a little bit weaker now. Looking at the defense, Ashawn Robinson, Greg Gaines, Aaron Donald, that's still really solid. Leonard Floyd's really good. Ernest Jones, Bobby Wagner adds a lot. Justin Hollins, Jalen Ramsey, obviously best corner in the game. Not trying to hear it. Taylor Rapp, Jordan Fuller, Troy Hill. So the three, they're going to run the ball a lot with Akers, Darrell Henderson. Like, they're going to have success with that. Cooper Kupp is going to give them a lot of success. But I don't know if the pieces definitely are not looking as good as last year. I think I'm going to put them here. Like I said, I might move the NFC teams around a little bit when I'm done. How many playoff teams do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right now. Yeah, I'll definitely have to probably move some things around, but that's okay. All right, moving on to the Seattle Seahawks. Like I said, I think the 49ers are probably going to end up having to cut Jimmy G. And if so, I think Seattle would actually probably be a pretty good spot for him. They have a lot of things to work with here. But right now, I just have to look at the roster that they have. Geno Smith and Drew Lock, I think that's pretty whack. Jacob Eason, I would let all three of them fight for that spot. I'm not really a big fan of any of them. Rashad Penny, Kenneth Walker, Chris Carson, that's a pretty good running back room. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, obviously two really, really, really good receivers. D. Eskridge, I'm a big fan of. Bo Melton, I like. Freddie Swain, Marcus Cole. They got some good receivers. Noah Fant at tight end. So they have a lot of weapons to throw to. Some pretty good running backs. They did get Charles Cross to help at left tackle. Damian Lewis is okay. Their O-line's still a question mark, but it's better than it has been. I think Jimmy G would really help this team out a lot. Darrell Taylor, LJ Collier. It's fine. Boye Mafe. I could use some help at whole D-line, really. Linebackers, Jordan Brooks is okay. After that, it's pretty weird. Not a big fan of Jamal Adams, to be honest. He's a solid, strong safety, but I just think he's a little overrated. Justin Coleman is an okay nickel. Yeah. Seattle's looking pretty bad. It's tough because they have a lot of really good weapons. But Geno Smith, I don't believe in at all. With these weapons, I think Drew Lock could do some things. I think they're at least below average, even with this roster, just because of, like, that's a pretty. Those are some really good weapons. If they sign Jimmy G, I think they can be. I think they're at least a playoff team. But right now, I'm gonna have to go below average. Because I'm not a believer in any of those quarterbacks. All right. Moving on to the Panthers, and this is the last division. The NFC South, my bad. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Matt Corral, PJ Walker at quarterback. I think Baker's definitely the best of them, at least right now. He'll probably get the start regardless. Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard is fine. Hopefully McCaffrey can stay healthy. If that's the case, then it's way more than fine. He's a fantastic player. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, really good number 1-2 punch. Terrace Marshall is a solid player. Rashard Higgins, Shai Smith, that's pretty decent. Tommy Tremble, their tight end room's a little lacking. Akeem Aquanu at left tackle's fantastic. Bradley Bozeman, I'm not really a big fan of their O-line as a whole. Brian Burns and Ider Gross-Matos, I think that's fine. Derek Brown's good. Damian Wilson, Shaq Thompson. I think their linebackers are solid. J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson, I think is fine. Xavier Woods and Jeremy Chin, I think is fine. Their defense is just okay. It's nothing crazy. They have some pretty good weapons if everybody's healthy. O-line is still lacking from Akeem Aquanu. I'm gonna say they're gonna be a solid team, but that's about it. Although the NFC is kind of lacking, but yeah, I'll keep them there. I think having them next to the Patriots makes some sense. All right, moving on to the Saints. We've got Jameis Winston as their starter. He's another guy who can win and lose you games on his own by throwing a bunch of yards and touchdowns or a bunch of yards and picks. So that's a thing. Alvin Kamara, obviously an amazing player. Mark Ingram, solid. But Alvin Kamara is looking at some suspensions, I think. So we'll see about that. Michael Thomas has had a lot of injury issues, but this receiving core is crazy. Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave is crazy. Even if Michael doesn't play and it's just Juice and Chris Olave, that's still really good. And you add him on. Kevin White's on the team? I didn't even know he was still in the league. Marcus Callaway. After that, it gets a little bit weird. Kirk Merritt's an okay player, though. Yeah. Tight end's a little lacking. They do have Taysom Hill as a full-blown tight end now. So that's interesting. James Hurst. Ryan's fine. They're definitely lacking at left tackle now. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of their O-line. Cameron Jordan's still a good player. Marcus Davenport, I'm not a big fan of. I actually like Peyton Turner a little more. The defensive tackles are pretty lacking. Pete Werner's okay. DeMario Davis, Zach Bond, I think their linebacking core is solid enough. Paulson Debo and Marshawn Lattimore is okay. Tyrann Matthews good. I think they can definitely make the playoffs with this team for sure. It's gonna come down to Jameis, and also without Sean Payton, we have to kind of see what their offense still looks like. That's gonna be a question mark, but we'll see. Moving on to the Falcons, Marcus Mariota is their starting quarterback right now. Desmond Ridder is their number 2. I think that's fine. It's not great, but I think Marcus is a decent bridge quarterback. Cordell Patterson and Damian Williams, I think, are fine at running back, but nothing crazy. Drake London, Brian Edwards, and Zach, the receiving core is kind of lacking. Drake London's solid. These guys are like number 3s. Bird is fast. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of their receiving core. Kyle Pitts, obviously a really good tight end. Kind of lacking after that. I like Chris Lindstrom. After that, I don't like their offensive line at all. Defense, Marlon Davidson. Grady Jarrett's great. Quan Graham, not a big fan of. Deion Jones is fine. Sean Evans is fine. Arnold Ebitike, I think, is him starting right now is a little weird to me. Lorenzo Carter, yeah. AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward. Richie Grant should really be starting. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I think the Falcons are whack. I'm not going to lie to you. I think this team's bad. Like, if there was more around Marcus Mariota, that might be different, but this team's whack. It's not even regular bad. And last but not least, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So obviously, Tom Brady at QB, Blaine Gabbert, Kyle Trask as the backups. I think that's fine. Leonard Fournette, Rashad White, Keyshawn Vaughn, Giovanni Bernard, some pretty good running backs. I think the receiving core is great. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage. I think that's great. Russell Gage was probably the Falcons' best receiver last year. So I think that more than fills AB's position. He's not quite as good as AB even now, but still a really good player. Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Rashad Perriman. I think this is a really good receiving core. Cameron Brate's still there. Kyle Rudolph and Cade Otton. Fantastic tight end room. I think Cade Otton will probably not play a whole lot this year. Tight ends usually take at least a year to develop. So I think getting Kyle Rudolph makes some sense. Donovan Smith. I think their O-line's fine. Wirfs, I think their O-line's still fine. I think Akeem Hicks filling in for Ndamukong Suh. I think they're going to be fine there. Vita Vea, William Golston's still really good. Joe Tryon's pretty good, especially with Shaq Barrett on the other side. Devin White and Levante David still really good. They still have most of their pieces on defense and offense, really. So I think the Bucs are still a Super Bowl contender with Tom Brady. I do. I think on paper they're the best team in the NFC. Rams are also really good. So let's see how many NFC teams we have in the playoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we have the 49ers and Saints fighting for that last spot. I think that makes sense. And like I said, if the Seahawks get a quarterback, especially because, like I said, I think the Niners are most likely going to end up having to cut Jimmy G because they're not going to trade him to Seattle. They won't trade him to a division opponent. And all the other quarterback-needy teams, like the Falcons, not the Falcons, them too. They have Desmond Ridder, so I don't know if they want another veteran quarterback. Davis Mills, I think the Texans want to see what they've got with him. Giants could be interesting, but I think they want to give Daniel Jones one more shot. I think the owner has already stated that. Lions maybe, but I think they got something similar in Goff. There really isn't any team that really stands out to trade for Jimmy G right now, so I think they're ultimately going to have to cut him because I don't think they can keep him on as a backup quarterback for the season. Because like I said, you do not want that message. If you want to move on to a young quarterback, you cannot leave the veteran on the roster. You just can't. Because the second they start slipping up, they're going to want to go to that veteran. So, it just is what it is. If you're gonna go with Lance, then you need to get Jimmy G off that team. And if you can't trade him, you've got to cut him. And if that happens, like I said, I think Seattle is the best possible place for him because they do not have a quarterback that they really feel good about. I don't think. Geno Smith, he's had enough chances to prove himself. Not really a big fan of Drew Lock or Jacob Eason either. So I think Seattle is probably going to be where he should end up. And if he does, I think they are a playoff team, or at least would be really in the running. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, I appreciate hitting that like button. If you have any questions or comments in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.